Coming in at number 10 is Cincinnati subway. In the 20th century, Cincinnati decided to build a subway system after canals quickly became, well, a nuisance. The plan was made in 1912 to build a 16-mile rapid transit rail system in a loop around the city, with a branch going underground and heading downtown. More than 80% of citizens said yes to the new railway, but work on it didn't start after World War I on January 28, 1920. Now, despite several delays, the 2-mile underground portion of the subway was completed by 1923. Proposals came and went in the 30s, but none were implemented. A 1948 study finally ended the Cincinnati subway for good, though efforts to do something with the tunnels have been constantly ongoing for more than half a century. Ideas have included a bomb shelter, a shopping and nightlife district, a massive wine cellar, and more rapid transit. I-75 was built, destroying a large segment of the underground passage, but one of the city's best kept secrets is in fact that sections of the original subway still remain, including all 4 of the stations put in during initial construction. Today, all of these passages are sealed off and they are used by Cincinnati waterworks only. However, stories say there are ghosts that reside in them. Some say the tunnels were never put to use because of the strange activity that takes place throughout. Rumor has it, if you listen closely enough, you will hear footsteps and breathing in the darkness. Number 9. Mexico subway. Between 2008 and 2012, workers on a subway extension track of El Metro in Mexico City uncovered a number of human skulls dating back to the Aztec imperial period. They appear to have been part of a skull banner, which is a rack where skulls of sacrificial victims were proudly displayed. The grisly find included 2 male skulls, 1 female skull, and weirdly enough, a dog skull. All the skulls had characteristic proportions, allowing them to be mounted on the rack, which is odd considering that most sacrificial victims were men, and sacrificial skulls of animals were rare. Regardless, finding that is just straight up creepy. Number 8. All the New York subways. In 2014, a team of scientists from Weill Cornell Medical College sequenced genetic material found in the turnstiles, seats, and ticket booths of all 468 New York City subway stations. They discovered bacteria known to thrive on human skin, as well as those associated with gastrointestinal and urogenital systems and human feces. They discovered remnants of neighborhood-specific cuisine like pizza and falafels, though considering the fecal bacteria, I don't think you should really be eating on there. Now, one station that had been flooded during Hurricane Sandy still contained DNA associated with a marine environment. They even found traces of anthrax and the bubonic plague, although they were quick to downplay any risks to the public. All in all, the team found DNA from 15,152 distinct species. The weird part though, over half of the DNA sequences match no known organism. The likely explanation is that the subways simply contain mundane microorganisms that we haven't got around to matching the genetic sequences for yet, but to me that sounds like they might be hiding aliens from us. Number 7. Moscow subway. Metro 2 is the name given to a secret underground rail network built by Stalin in the 1930s to allow the Soviet secret police to move around the city rapidly without detection. It originally linked Stalin's dacha suburban residence, the Ministry of Defense, command bunkers, and other military facilities. Larger and more expensive than the official metro system, it is unknown whether construction stopped after Stalin's death or if his successors continued to expand it. The system was also meant to serve as a protection against a nuclear attack, with a supposed giant bunker built that was able to house up to 300,000 people, along with an alternate command post for the Soviet High Command. Now, there are even rumors that the network extends for miles outside of Moscow, allowing Soviet leaders to flee in case the capital was hit by a nuclear attack. There are also rumors that the tunnels were used by the military to transport supplies, materials, and personnel between bunkers without exposure. A tunnel leading into the Metro 2 system was discovered after the 1960s era Russia Hotel near the Kremlin was demolished. The tunnel was referred to as D6, which is apparently KGB code for Metro 2, and urban explorers attempted to exit through the main metro line through a sealed door. Number 6. Vancouver subway. The bustling waterfront station is one of the most important hubs along Vancouver's transportation system, and it's considered the city's most haunted building. Built by the Canadian Pacific Railway subway in 1915, many of the station's attendants have reported apparition activity, especially during the night shift. One night, a guard saw a ghost of a woman in a 1920s flapper dress. She was dancing alone in the corridor on the west side of the building, and he could hear the sound of 1920s music playing as she danced. When he approached her, the music stopped and she suddenly vanished. Another security guard entered an empty room with nothing but his flashlight to light the way, and he encountered the ghost of an old woman. She was glowing white and had a mournful look on her face. As he stood staring, she reached out to him. Then, on an upper floor, another guard experienced poltergeist-like activity while on night patrol. As he walked through a room used to store a number of old desks, the desks moved together behind him without a sound. When he turned to make his way back through the room and realized he was blocked by the desks, he was scared, he leapt on top of the desks, and ran from the room. In addition to these encounters, various security guards at the waterfront station have heard the sounds of phantom footsteps walking on the tiled floors of the building late at night when nobody else is around. Others have seen the ghosts of 3 little old ladies sitting on a station bench as if waiting for a train that never arrives. Number 5. Australia Subway. The Macquarie Field Station is located in Australia and is home to a ghost of a girl who haunts the train's platform. Several people have reportedly seen her walking as she clutches her bloodied chest, with her terrifying screams getting louder and louder as nighttime approaches. When she is not vocalizing her pain and suffering, the girl at the train station sits on the platform while staring at the tracks as her moans and groans echo around her. Now, in July 1906, a woman named Emily Gangson was reportedly run over and had her life ended by the train, so this ghost girl is rumored to be her. Number 4. Singapore Subway. Ambition MRT station Ambition in Singapore is rumored to be filled with ghosts. Now, the station along central Singapore's mass rapid transport system was constructed over the location of the former Bai Sheng Tang Cemetery. So I mean, are we really that shocked that it's haunted? Among the series of frightening reports in the station's vicinity include ghostly sightings of headless figures and phantom passengers, and the hearing of footsteps on top of moving trains. There's also a tale of a young man on a train who witnessed a woman sitting opposite him calmly remove her head and place it on her lap. Yeah, I would have lost it if I were him. Number 3. Ireland Subway. One of the major railway stations in Dublin, Connolly Station, has a history that provides plenty of reason to suspect supernatural activity at work. The train station, which first opened in 1844 as Emmons Street Station, was bombed during World War II in 1941. Multiple reports of poltergeist happenings were spread, including one incident in which a night watchman spotted a soldier walking along the platform on the security camera. After playing the security footage back, the soldier was nowhere in sight, and instead a group of pigeons were in his place. Doors have been known to open and close of their own accord, and there have been claims of poltergeist activity at the station over the years. Number 2. India Subway. This station in a village of West Bengal's Parula district hosts the spirit of a woman in a white sari who dances on the train platform. It's rumored that the woman died during a railway accident along the tracks. In 1967, a railway employee gave an eyewitness report of the sighting of the woman. The next day, he told people about it, but they ignored him. Now, a seemingly first-hand account of the incident was published with details of what had actually happened at the time. Then, weeks later, he was found dead, presumably by the ghost. The real trouble started when the dead bodies of the station master and his family were found in their quarters. The station was subsequently closed as trains stopped making halts there due to alleged paranormal phenomena. The station was subsequently closed for 42 years until its reopening in 2009. And coming in at number 1 is New York Subway. Again. Now, City Hall Station, also known as the City Hall Loop, is an abandoned subway station in New York City. It was a part of the original line of the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, IRT, which opened on October 27, 1904. However, the station's unique design proved problematic for the longer subway cars that were introduced later. As a result, it was closed to regular passenger service on December 31st, 1945. Now, it's said that this place is haunted as during the construction of the station, workers claimed to hear a strange, unidentifiable noise late at night. One of the workers, a member of the Lenni Lempe tribe, recognized the sound as a language. The station was being built on the site of an ancient battle, and the moans belonged to the warriors lost that day. These agitated spirits lamented their lack of proper burial until a shaman performed a ceremony allowing them to rest. Now this is just creepy, and I think we should stop building things on ancient graves and battlegrounds. I don't know though, it's just a thought.
Next up on the list, we have underwater pyramids in Cuba. There is a lot of controversy surrounding the so-called underwater pyramids off the coast of Cuba. Discovered by oceanographer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinswig in 2000, these structures lie at a depth of around 2,000 feet. So when images of this underwater site were first released, people looked at them and were like, that looks like some kind of underwater pyramid or something. Are these structures that maybe are part of some ancient lost civilization? The mysterious alignment of the structures has also led some to propose extraterrestrial involvement. The idea that maybe these pyramids could be part of an ancient alien civilization's underwater base. Just like with many cases of this kind, some also claim that governments and mainstream archaeologists are suppressing information about the site to maintain the status quo. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have, of course, these skeptics. They basically just said these are natural formations, and what folks are seeing is just a case of pareidolia. While many remain skeptical about the existence of an advanced ancient civilization beneath the waves, looking at these images, you really can't deny how uncanny some of these formations look. And number 4, we have Bimini Road. Bimini Road, discovered off the coast of North Bimini Island in the Bahamas in 1968, has again a lot of controversy surrounding it. It consists of a series of rectangular limestone blocks arranged in a linear pattern, looking almost like a road. The discovery was first made by pilots flying over the area, and then underwater expeditions confirmed the existence of the submerged structure. Now, according to mainstream scientists, Bimini Road consists of beach rock, a result of sand and shell fragments cementing over time. So many of them believe it isn't man-made, but there are more interesting theories. Some propose an Atlantis connection, that maybe the structure is a remnant of the mythical lost city. There's just too many straight lines and right angles in the formation for it to be some natural occurrence. And there are theories not linked with Atlantis, the possibility of some other advanced prehistoric civilization predating the known cultures. And because the internet exists and there are people with all kinds of crazy ideas all over the globe, there are even more outlandish theories about this formation, some claiming technological anomalies associated with the stones, like unusual magnetic fields and unexplained energy readings. Alright, back to some mysterious creature stuff though. The Yellowbelly sea monster. On September 11th of 1876, Captain John K. Webster and James Anderson aboard the Nestor saw something they'd truly never forget. It was an unidentified sea creature while off the coast of Malaysia. They described the thing as about 60 to 100 feet in length. It looked a bit like a large tadpole with a flat necklace head. It didn't seem to have any fins or flippers either, and its yellow skin had a prominent black stripe running along its spine. About 9 years later, on October 4th of 1885, a similar creature was observed in South Africa. Witnesses reported a 90-foot creature with yellow skin, black stripes, but this creature had fins on either side. In 1965, Bernard Heuvelmans, a Belgian-French scientist, explorer, researcher, also often referred to as the father of cryptozoology, looked at these two sightings and then categorized the creature as the Yellowbelly. He believed it could be an unknown shark species or possibly an amphibian, creating a classification for tadpole-like sea monsters on a bigger scale. Of course, the most famous Yellowbelly sighting, though, occurred on December 12th of 1964 near Hook Island, Queensland. Robert Lasarick and his family, along with a friend, spotted an 80-foot creature in the shallow water. At first they thought it was dead because of a visible wound, but it opened its mouth and began swimming towards their boat. The creature had smooth, dark skin with brown stripes, no visible fins or teeth, and slit-shaped pupils. Then the family just got out of there. At number 2, we have the underwater Stonehenge. Off the shores of Lake Michigan lies an intriguing underwater discovery known as the underwater Stonehenge. Researchers came across the site while using sonar technology to explore the lake's floor. The underwater formation features a cluster of stones arranged in a circular or horseshoe-type pattern, looking a lot like the renowned Stonehenge in England. In terms of the mainstream scientific world, experts propose that the stones may be natural geological formations that always seems to be their go-to. People will be like, look at this, and then they're like, it's natural, it's natural. While others think that this site might hold evidence of an ancient civilization predating recorded history. The stones seem to be placed in this very precise alignment, and of course, Atlantis always comes into the conversation. Finally though, we have another story posted to Reddit. This one by user Tamu. Actually, we have 2 short stories here. They go as follows. This isn't my story, but my dad's. So when he was in grad school, he did some field studies classes, some of which involved diving in Monterey Bay. One day he was diving, counting something off the Santa Cruz Pier, and he finds a shopping cart with bricks and cinder blocks and a chain attached to the handle. He naturally followed the chain and found a bare foot wrapped in the chain. He assumes something probably ate the rest of the body, and apparently his friends had seen similar things too. Also not mine, but my dad's friend. He says he was on a shelf counting mussels when he felt something tap his tank. He looked around, didn't see anything. He figured it was a seal, because they like to play. When he was nudged again, he saw it was a great white. He says he thought to himself, if it gets me, it gets me. I can't outswim it. Now, I don't know if he was actually that chill. I sure wouldn't be, but that's how he tells it. So that second story really gets me. Like, the foot is super creepy, but turning around to see a great white right next to you, and you're in its habitat, and you just have that acceptance of like, there's nothing I can do in this situation. That is fear on like a true primal level. Yeah, spooky.
Starting off this countdown, we have the head transplant. So scientists have discovered a way to transfer a head from one body to another. I know, it's crazy. Let me explain. So Italian surgeon Sergio Canavero managed to attach a smaller rat to a larger rat and still kept the rat alive. The rat was still fully functioning. He also claimed to have successfully done this with dogs, and in 2016, he did this on a monkey. Apparently, he does this by attaching the spinal cords together, and now he's looking for real-life people to be a part of his experiment. He wants to be able to do this on humans. Maybe that's why Walt Disney had his head frozen for so many years. He's waiting to be attached to another, younger body. Just kidding. But seriously, this is terrifying. In our 9th spot, we have the alien DNA. In 2014, it was discovered that DNA can survive re-entry from space. Basically, Swiss and German scientists put DNA on the exterior of a rocket. The rocket then did a trip around space and back to Earth. And they found that the DNA on the rocket survived. Meaning, if there is life out there and they sent a message to Earth, their alien DNA would successfully survive on Earth. This has scared a lot of people because they think an alien invasion is now possible, which is pretty creepy, not gonna lie. Also, that means intergalactic bacteria and disease can also survive its trip to Earth, which can threaten humanity. Isn't that great? Moving on to number 8, we have the deadly snails. So, snails are slow, tiny creatures that no one really fears. But maybe we should. Apparently, snails are one of the most deadly animals in the world. Why? Well, freshwater snails kill up to 20,000 people a year. People die after drinking water contaminated with snail eggs. If you do this, then you develop a condition called schistosomiasis. And guess what? These snails can live 3 to 10 years in a host's body. In some cases, they have lived 40 years. If you're eating something right now, I suggest you put your food away because you're about to lose your appetite. Trust me, this next discovery is very disgusting. So basically, there was a Russian woman that discovered a small lump below her left eye. She didn't really think anything of it until the lump moved. It moved above her eye, and then next thing you know, there was a bump on her lip. That's when she reached out and got medical attention. Turns out she had a thread-like worm living in her body. This is known as Dirofilaria repens. It typically infects dogs, cats, foxes, and other wild animals. But turns out they can transfer to humans too. How lovely. It can be spread by mosquito bites. Then this worm will live in your tissue under your skin. Ugh, no thank you.
Coming in at our halfway point at number 5, we have a Jurassic Park creature in amber. Jurassic Park is finally going to be real, guys, and as much as I love that, I also am incredibly terrified because I have seen all of those movies and it never ends well. Why do we keep doing it? But luckily for me and all of you, I'm just kidding. But a creature was found in amber just like the mosquito in the movies. A 99-million-year-old piece of amber from Myanmar was found containing what was believed to be one of the smallest dinosaurs ever. Well, now it's believed to just be a lizard, but a weird one at that. This weird creature is bird-like in appearance and has 100 razor-sharp teeth and weighs just 0.7 ounces. Now, no matter what the creature inside is, this is a wicked cool discovery of a prehistoric animal that might just lead to our very own Jurassic Park. Or maybe not, but never say never. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have big game female hunters. Most historians and scientists agreed that big game hunters way back in time were all men. But guess what? They might be wrong. A 9,000-year-old female hunter burial ground was found in the Andes Mountains in South America. Other than the female humans, they also found a hunting toolkit with projectile points and animal processing tools. Usually any objects buried with humans at the time would be objects that accompanied the deceased for most of their life. Kinda like super sentimental personal belongings. It was confirmed that the bodies found were indeed female after analyzing the dental protein in the bones that they found. Later throughout North and South America, researchers found 429 individuals from 107 different sites. Out of those individuals, 27 were associated with big game hunting, and out of those 27, 11 were female and 15 were male. So it sounds like things might have been more equal between men and women back in the day. At least way more than what we thought. So when did this sex inequality start? Well, it probably wasn't with the mean big game women hunters, that's for sure. Starting us off in our top 3, at number 3, we have the Reaper of Death, also known as the T-Rex's cousin. And guess what? This beast is Canadian. This dinosaur is 79.5 million years old and is the oldest named Tyrannosaurus on record from North America. It is also the first newly named Tyrannosaur from Canada in the last 50 years. Go us! Jared Voris, a paleontology student at the University of Alberta and lead researcher of the study, said, "It definitely would have been quite the imposing animal, roughly 8 feet tall at the hips. The Reaper had these unique vertical ridges that ran from its eyes to its upper snout, and scientists aren't exactly sure why this dino had these ridges, but if you were its prey, then it was probably one of the last things you ever saw in your life." And you know what? I would really appreciate if this is what Canada became known for instead of its manners, maple syrup, beavers, and how we talk when we're oot in a boot. I mean, we're nasty just like the rest of the world too, okay? Come on. Sorry. Coming in at number 2, we have a giant woolly mammoth discovery. Back in 2020, archaeologists discovered a giant ice age structure built from the remains of at least 60 mammoths at the Kostenki-Borshevo Archaeological Complex. The giant structure was in a circular shape and had a diameter of 12.5 meters and was built around 25,000 years ago. That was at the peak of the ice age. It was also when communities were mostly mobile hunter-gatherers. This makes the monument one of the oldest known mammoth bone structures ever in comparison to the other structures that have been found and that date back to only 22,000 years ago. You know, only 22,000. It's basically an infant. There was a total of 51 lower jaws and 64 individual mammoth skulls that were used to construct the walls of the 30 by 30 feet structure. Let me emphasize here, folks, these bones are incredibly dense and heavy, which means building these structures would have been super tiresome and strenuous. So give it up for my ice peeps, but also for the mammoths. Thank you for the shelter. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the missing link. Just recently in June of this year, researchers from the Tel Aviv University and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem identified a new type of human ancestor at the Nesher Ramla site. These human remains date back to 140 to 120,000 years ago. Researchers named this species the Nesher Ramla homotype. They named it this because of its obvious location, but also because they believe this was one species that mated with the Neanderthals and archaic Homo species, which then led to the development of us Homo sapiens. This species of humanoids were very different from us nowadays. They had a completely different skull structure, no chin, and very large teeth, and as I said earlier, scientists believe these guys were the missing links in human evolution. It also helps us understand the migration of our early ancestors, which is always a fascinating question to answer. Just where did we come from, and once we were here, how did we get here?
Who knows? And we're starting off this list with Gabbro. In the Sahara Desert in Niger stands Gabbro, consisting of 8 archaeological sites. It was discovered in 2000 by a team of researchers led by Paul Serrano. The graveyard dates back to the Holocene period, about 10,000 years ago. The site gave archaeologists a wealth of info about early human societies in a once habitable Sahara. There were tons of burials there, both human and animal, giving researchers a small window into the lifestyle and burial practices of the people who once lived there. It looks like there was a mix of hunter-gatherer and farmer communities. Human remains, along with cattle and other animals, showed that there was a coexistence of early humans and domesticated animals in the area. The graveyard's location is now an arid desert, but at one time it was a lush, lively area with lakes and vegetation, and the aquatic and land fauna in the grave sites showed that there was a shift from a healthy green environment to the desert landscape of today. All of this is really cool, but I don't think I need to do a lot of explaining as to why finding a vast area in the desert full of buried human bones would also be kind of eerie. Number 9, the 6-foot catfish. In 2017, a previously undiscovered prehistoric species was discovered, buried in the sands of Egypt. It was named Quarmatus hitanensis, which was basically a massive sized catfish that was swimming around 37 million years ago. It was actually 6.5 feet long, which is horrifying. And anatomically, these things were basically identical to modern day catfishes, just scaled up, of course. Not the scariest prehistoric sea creature by a long shot, because call me crazy, but I actually think catfish are kind of cute. But any animal larger than your average human being is just kind of intimidating to me, even if they are cute. And at number 8, we have the Nabta Stones. The Nabta Stones are a collection of ancient structures located in the Nubian desert. This formation of stones date back around 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, during the late Neolithic period. The site was first discovered in the 70s by a team of scientists led by Fred Wendorf, an American archaeologist. The Nabta Stones are a series of these flat granite slabs and megaliths arranged in a circular and semi-circular pattern. The stones vary in size, some weigh several tons. It's still a bit of a mystery as to what they were used for. Some scholars think they were used as an early form of a calendar. The alignment of the stones with specific astronomical events also means that the ancient people who built them had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and were capable of precise measurements. The stones are also associated with the ancient cattle cult that existed in the region. Archaeological evidence suggests that people who built the stones were farmers who relied on cattle for their livelihood. The stones feature carvings and depictions of cattle showing the importance of these animals in the religious and cultural beliefs of these ancient people. But the exact purpose of the stones, the identity of the people who built them, and the true extent of their knowledge about astronomy and agriculture are still relatively mysterious. Next up, we have the Sahara ghost towns. Ghost towns are always creepy. It's hard not to feel uneasy in a village completely void of people. Even empty buildings at night just give us the creeps. So imagine being in an ancient abandoned town in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Jado is an abandoned settlement in the northeastern region of Niger, near the border with Libya and Algeria. One time the town was a thriving community inhabited by the Tuareg people, nomadic Berber tribes who roamed the Sahara. The town was once a trading post and an oasis in the desert. Jado was located on the trade routes that cross the Sahara, connecting North Africa with West Africa. It consists of mud brick buildings, some that are several stories in height. Its decline began in the late medieval period, partly due to changes in these trade routes. Eventually, everyone up and left, leaving many of the structures still standing. And droughts and a lack of water were probably a big part of this mass exodus. Today, the crumbling mud brick structures are now weathered by the harsh desert conditions, and the streets that were once bustling with activity are completely empty, a time capsule of a long forgotten time. Number 6, the giant crocodile. In 2014, paleontologists found the remains of Machymosaurus rex in the Sahara Desert, an ancient marine reptile that lived during the Jurassic period. This was a massive creature, dwarfing modern-day crocs. Measured twice the length of the ones we have now. It would have weighed over 6,000 pounds. One of the craziest things about these creatures, or this discovery, was the size of its skull. Its skull alone was more than 5 feet long, which is around the height of one of the archaeologists who discovered it. This discovery was also big because up until this point, scientists thought the species had died off in the Jurassic period, but the fossil was actually dated back to the Cretaceous, meaning these creatures were alive a lot longer than they once thought.
Starting off this countdown, we have the secret underground community. Believe it or not, but there is a group of urban explorers that like to hang out in the Paris catacombs. They call themselves the Cataphiles, and they sneak into the tunnels, evade the police, and then go exploring. In fact, they have claimed a number of sections as their own, marking it with murals and graffiti. Not only that, but they have found secret ways to get into the catacombs. Plus, they've started mapping the whole place out so that other explorers don't get lost. Only problem is that this is a very dangerous hobby. Since they are entering restricted areas in the catacombs, they have to watch out for crumbling walls, falling rocks, even pools of water. I don't know about you, but I prefer to spend my time with the living and not the dead. In our 9th spot, we have the Lost Girl. In 2005, a group of teens illegally snuck into the catacombs on New Year's. Sadly, they all didn't make it out alive. They all were drinking and having a blast when one of their friends, Masha, wandered off alone. When they finally realized she had disappeared, they went out looking for her but couldn't find her. No one knew what happened to her until 4 months later. That's when a group of boys were exploring the catacombs when they stumbled upon her frozen body. Since she was drunk, she wandered off to another section of the catacombs and then got lost and froze to death. How heartbreaking. Coming in at number 8, we have Philibert Aspairt. Philibert Aspairt was a doorkeeper at the Val de Grace Hospital during the French Revolution. And the hotel actually had a staircase located in the courtyard that would lead to the catacombs. So one night in November of 1793, Philibert descended into the catacombs to retrieve a bottle of liquor stored down there. However, he only brought one candle with him and it was not enough to light the way. Eventually it blew out and he was down there in pitch black. Being semi-intoxicated, he stumbled around the catacombs lost. For 11 years, no one knew what happened to him. That was until 1804 when his body was found. He was identified by the hospital keyring hanging from his belt. Moving on, number 7, we have the Whispering Walls. A number of explorers have claimed that no one should ever be in the Paris catacombs after midnight. For if you are, then the walls will begin to speak. People have claimed to have heard disembodied voices coming from the catacombs. These voices confuse them and try to persuade them to travel deeper and deeper into the catacombs until you're in too far that you're lost and you can't escape. Actually, fun fact, they use this as inspiration for the movie As Above, So Below, which takes place in the Paris catacombs. In our 6th spot today, we have the camera system. In 2004, a group of French police explored some of the restricted areas of the Paris catacombs. And that's when they discovered something truly terrifying. First, they found a PA system that when triggered would play sounds of guard dogs barking. Then they found a full-on bar, living area, workshop, lounge, and cinema with space to fit 20 people. Like what? Not only that, but whoever created this little home setup was stealing other people's electricity from above. The creepiest part is that they had a full-on security camera set up, and the police soon realized that they were being watched. They left to get a bigger team to further investigate the area, but by the time they got back, everything was gone. The only thing left was a note that read, "Don't search." We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Dicure. Dicure is the name of a very mysterious man. We don't know much about him, but we do know that he was a veteran of the French army, and he was also an artist. In fact, he created a number of sculptures for the catacombs. However, this eventually led to his death. During the construction of one of his sculptures, a part of it fell and crushed him completely. It's said that to this day, his soul wanders the catacombs. In fact, people have seen him down there before. In our fourth spot today, we have the Crypt of Passions. The Crypt of Passions, located in the ossuary, is a pillar that is covered in skulls to the point that it's just completely concealed. The skulls end up forming what looks like a barrel, which is creepy for a number of reasons. Just take in, those are real skulls. You're surrounded by people who used to be living, and most of them died in tragic ways. And then their bones were used for—
We're starting off the list with this video captured in 2017 in British Columbia, Canada. This is a video, but it's the sound that really matters here. So it was early in the morning, 8:30 a.m. on December 16th in Whitsett, British Columbia. And this dude started filming the tree line when he heard an absolutely nightmarish sound echoing through the trees, far off in the distance. Take a listen to this. How frightening is that? Now sure, there are a lot of animals in British Columbia. One commenter said this sounds like it could be a mountain lion call. Not sure about that myself. I've never spent time in British Columbia, to be fair, but I've watched videos of mountain lion vocalizations and this doesn't sound like that to me. But what do you guys think? To me this sounds like a banshee. Could also be an elk. Elk makes some pretty creepy noises. Take a listen to that, like that's pretty cool, right? Sounds like one of the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. Anyway, whether the creature in this video was Bigfoot, a ghost, or just a known animal, it's a freaky sound any way you slice it, and I would not want to hear that walking through the woods alone. Alright, this next story is pretty nuts. It was posted to Reddit by Donna Hotter Than a Sauna, and she talks about a run-in she and her boyfriend had with a gator. Actually, two gators. Anyway, goes like this. My boyfriend and I were walking through the woods on a nature trail when we came across a piece of alligator tail and foot that had been ripped and the rest of the body was gone. I freaked out. All I kept thinking was, I have no idea what's big enough to kill and eat an entire alligator, but I don't want to meet it. We cautiously kept walking, and a few hundred feet later saw a giant, probably 10 foot at least, alligator walking along the shoreline with a whole smaller dead alligator in its mouth. You know what's extra terrifying about that story? So they came across a huge alligator, right, that was hungry enough to eat one of its own kind. If they'd been on that walk just a little earlier, may have found them instead. Freaky stuff. Next up, we have the incredibly odd case of the Oakville Blobs. So the Oakville Blobs case was a very bizarre incident that happened in Oakville, Washington in 1994, and I cannot believe I've never heard of this case until today. Like, where have I been? What have I been doing with my life? So this is basically the real life version of the blob. These gelatinous like globs started falling from the sky, and the even scarier part is that they weren't just harmless goo. The blobs actually started making people sick. They experienced symptoms like nausea, dizziness, and respiratory issues. And when scientists looked at the blobs under a microscope, they found something even more strange. There were human white blood cells in them. Cells from our immune system were in these gooey raindrops. Like, what? What is this? How have I not heard of this before? And if you're hoping for some kind of closure to this story, that's too bad, because they've never been definitively identified. Alright, I got some cool Bigfoot footage for you next. This list is gonna be a bit all over the place, but you know, hey, the world's forests are just full of surprises. So this piece of footage was taken by Todd Standing, who's captured some pretty intriguing Bigfoot footage over the years, but this may be his most convincing. Here he saw an ape-like creature peeking out from a tree root, and he was able to focus in and get some pretty clear footage of its face. Take a look. Just look at the skin, the blinking eyes, like the subtle movements. It looks like a real face to me. Now, could it be a guy painted up with some fake fur attached to his head? Maybe. I mean, this could totally, very well be a well-executed hoax. But there's also a chance it could be a real animal, too. Next up, we head to the Hessdalen Valley in Norway to discuss unidentified lights periodically spotted in the sky since the 1930s. The Hessdalen Lights are this mysterious glowing phenomena that show up in the Hessdalen Valley. Sometimes they're seen during the day, sometimes at night. They can be white, yellow, or red, and have been seen above and below the horizon. They can last for just a few seconds or go on for more than an hour. Sometimes they zip around really fast, other times they sway back and forth, and occasionally they just hang in the air. The lights became especially frequent between 1981 and 84, happening up to 20 times a week. People started traveling to the area hoping to see them, but by 2010 the sightings had decreased to about 10 to 20 per year. In 1998 though, the Hessdalen Automatic Measurement Station, or the Hessdalen AMS, was set up in the valley. It was designed to keep track of and record the mysterious lights when they showed up. Until this day though, they're still not 100% sure what causes them. Next up, we have the discovery of the Saula. Now, this one may not have terrified scientists as much as get them super excited, but anytime a cryptid is found to actually exist, it's pretty incredible. This creature, native to the Annamite Mountains in Vietnam and Laos, has a couple nicknames, the Asian unicorn and the Vu Quang ox. It is an incredibly rare animal, and for a long time, it was completely unknown to the outside world, a mythological creature at best. But in 1992, these animals were discovered to actually exist, at least to researchers outside of the region anyway, and the first photograph of a Saula was taken in 1993. Did you notice that flap on the face that like flares out almost like the gill of a fish? Very strange. Cool animals. Next up, we have the whale in the jungle. And no, that's not some bizarre figure of speech. There really was a beached whale found in the Amazon jungle in 2019. This was an incredibly unexpected discovery made on Marajo Island at the mouth of the Amazon River. A 36-foot humpback whale weighing 10 tons was discovered all the way up into the jungle. The whale was a 12-month-old calf and was hidden in the undergrowth about 50 feet from the sea. So experts were pretty confused about how the whale made its way so deep into the jungle. One possible explanation is that rough seas might have tossed the creature out of the water and into the woods, but those must have been some pretty powerful waves. Darlene Silva from SEMA, the Brazilian Environmental Department, explained that the whale was found because scavenging birds were circling above the hidden carcass in the bush. Renita Emin, a marine specialist, was pretty surprised by the find as well, saying, "We're still not sure how it landed here, but we're guessing that the creature was floating close to the shore, and the tide, which has been pretty considerable over the past few days, picked it up and threw it inland into the mangrove." What's also strange about this though is that the humpback whales are usually found in the Bahia area from August to November, so how did one end up on the north coast of Brazil in February? Whales usually migrate to Antarctica after their time in Bahia, so it just makes this find even more strange. Let's talk about more creepy noises though, coming from the woods. Here's another. This video was posted to YouTube by Chris Simpkins, who heard this strange metallic sound coming from the woods near his home one night. Take a listen to this. Yeah, that's a bit creepy, ain't it? The video was taken on September 6th, 2016, about 8 p.m. in North Smithfield, Rhode Island. In the video description, Chris dispels some theories people had about what the sound could have been, writing, "There was almost no wind last night. We've lived here for a year and never heard this before. Even during the windiest of days, there aren't any trains nearby. And the background noise is just crickets/frogs in my yard, and maybe me crying a bit behind the phone." Anyway, let us know in the comments what you think of this one. Is it aliens? Is there some kind of power tool that can make a noise like that? Let us know what you think. Now, this next story may not sound like much to some of you, but I find this one pretty unsettling, and I wanted to throw it in. I think some of the scariest things we can come across is the absence of anything, complete silence and isolation. And Reddit user I Don't Care, I Like Dogs made a post about exactly that. They write, "I live in a really remote part of Alaska. I think the scariest thing I've ever encountered is how silent the woods tundra can be in the dead of winter. I'm talking like I feel I'm about to go insane quiet. It's absolutely unnerving. I became hyper aware of my heartbeat My breathing sounds like an effing airplane taking off, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's because a predator was nearby. No, man, some places up here just have nothing. That's what really freaks me out. I am absolutely alone in this one spot. I could drop dead and no one would ever find my body. And yeah, I just find that kind of unsettling. And finally, we have the lost city of Z. Percy Harrison Fawcett was a British explorer who set out in 1925 to find the lost city he called Z in the Amazon rainforest. Fawcett believed this ancient city held all these untold riches and a sophisticated civilization. Accompanied by his son Jack and friend Rayleigh Rimmel, Fawcett ventured into uncharted territory, never to be seen again. The expedition vanished without a trace, and there were tons of rescue attempts, including one by famed aviator Charles Lindbergh, but no sign of Fawcett or his companions has ever been found. One theory is that Fawcett just died as a result of all the harsh stuff out there in the jungle. Could have been eaten by an animal or something. Definitely very likely, but there's a more interesting and more intriguing theory that he and his crew may have actually found this lost city deep within the Amazon where they started a new life, living happily ever after down there. Over the years, there have been expeditions that set out to uncover the fate of Fawcett and the lost city of Z, but the Amazon is dense and dangerous, and to this day, the fate of Fawcett and the existence of this lost city is still a mystery.
Starting us off in our top 10 spot, we have apple fossils. Yeah, how cool is that? Fossils of modern day fruit. Apple specimens were found in a Neolithic site in Switzerland, and they date all the way back to 3160 BC. Archaeologists found an apple seed from the first millennium BC in the Tian Shan mountain in Kazakhstan, and this is where it is believed that the modern fruit that we all know and love originated. But how did they become famous all around the world, and the superfruit that sparked the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Well, archaeobotanist Robert Spangler, not Egon, from the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History, combined the apple fossil and other archaeological evidence with genetic studies, comparing our modern day apple to the original apple. He concluded that early human civilizations, just like today and other animals, spread apple seeds all around to continue to grow the delicious fruit. So there you go. Early humans, I thank you for apples, apple juice, and most importantly, apple pie. Coming in at number 9, we have the swimming Spinosaurus. For years and years, the dangerous and mean-looking Spinosaurus was believed to have been able to swim by archaeologists and scientists, but they never had any hard proof, because there weren't enough fossils to prove this hypothesis. And you know what? The only almost full specimen that humans found was destroyed during a bombing raid in the Second World War. But just recently, scientists analyzed the ancient beast's tail bones and discovered that its tail was actually broad and paddle-like according to the journal Nature. They had the perfect tails for swimming. A paleontologist at the University of Detroit Mercy said that this discovery is the nail in the coffin for the idea that non-avian dinosaurs never invaded the aquatic realm. This dinosaur was actively pursuing prey in the water column and not just standing in shallow waters waiting for fish to swim by. Damn, that's pretty cool. Coming in at number 8, we have an ancient Neanderthal string. Oh, cool. Back in December of 2020, scientists discovered the oldest known direct evidence of fiber technology using natural fibers to create yarn. This might not seem like a crazy huge discovery, but it's actually pretty big. Discoveries like these help us understand just how high the cognitive abilities were of the Neanderthals and what their abilities were during the Neo-Paleolithic age. Bruce Hardy and colleagues discovered the string in Abri-du-Maras, France, and date it back to 41,000 to 52,000 years ago. It was only 6 millimeters long and consisted of 3 bundles of fiber that most likely consisted from the inner bark of non-flowering trees, such as conifer. It would have taken great understanding of not only the use of these fabrics, but also the growing patterns of these trees that they would source the materials from. They also believe that these Neanderthals needed to have a decent understanding of mathematical concepts and basic numeracy skills to create bundles of fibers. So Neanderthals may have been smarter than what we have been giving them credit for, so I'm sorry guys. Coming in at our number 7 spot, we have migrating duck dinosaurs. Say what? The dinosaur called Asnabia odysseus was recently found in an area of the world where it should not have been. Not the actual dinosaur though, just a fossil. Dang it. Fossils of the old large duck dinosaur were unearthed in Morocco just last year. Nicholas Longrich, a paleontologist at the University of Bath, said it was completely out of place, like finding a kangaroo in Scotland. These duckbills evolved in North America and eventually migrated to South America, Asia, and Europe. But Africa was of course an island continent 66 million years ago, during the period that this dinosaur was alive. So how exactly did it get there? Did it just float its way there, or could it swim? I highly doubt this swimming theory, because these guys guys had arms relatively close to the T-Rex, which means they were basically useless, but who knows? Maybe I'm just underestimating these prehistoric beasts like I underestimated the Neanderthals too. Coming in at number 6, we have a Neolithic structure. Archaeologists from the University of Bradford discovered a large prehistoric site at the Durrington Walls near Stonehenge in England just last year. The archaeologists found a series of Neolithic shafts that date around 2500 BC and stretch for 2 kilometers around the Durrington Walls and Woodhenge monuments. The shafts were 10 meters in diameter and reached a depth of 5 meters. Researchers and archaeologists believe that these large and mysterious shafts were used as a boundary and a way to guide worshippers to the monuments. The team discovered 20 shafts and originally believed them to be the natural features and just hollows and chalk, but thanks to a large geophysical study, the pattern was determined over the large landscape and researchers were able to connect the dots. Stonehenge has been a site of many explorations for years and years, with much of its purpose and history still up for debate. So, anything that helps bring more information to this ancient site is always welcome to me.
Coming in at number 10 is the secret crematorium. In 1987, it was discovered that a ceramic place was secretly used as a crematorium, which is illegal, by the way. How was it discovered? Well, a man called in to complain about the smell and said, "Don't tell me they're not burning bodies. I was at the ovens in Auschwitz." Yep, he survived being in a concentration and recognized the smell, which I can't even begin to imagine how traumatizing that would be. The firm Oscar Ceramics belonged to David Sconsi, who owned the Pasadena crematorium, which closed after its roof was destroyed by fire. Oscar Ceramics was then closed by Hesperia Fire District officials after neighbors in the area complained of a putrid odor coming from the building. Inside, officials found 2 kilns that contained partially burned human remains, according to Assistant Fire Chief Will Wentworth. They weren't totally cremated when we shut the kilns down and opened them up. The State Attorney General Office was investigating it, claiming the ceramics place has done nothing but cremate corpses, including 950 pounds of unidentified body parts from the August 31st Creditos air disaster since it opened. Yeah, that is horrifying. Number 9. Visitor in the attic. In 2012, a single mother of 5 named Tracy found a man living in her attic. She heard banging in her attic and thought it was an animal, but when she sent her older sons and nephew to check, they found a man that she had broken up with 12 years ago sleeping in her heating unit at her home in Rock Hill, Charlotte. Tracy said his addiction to and offenses for robbery, including her own truck, meant that she was not interested in him, resulting in her breaking up with him a good 12 years ago. Talking about the night she discovered the man in her house, she said she had a feeling something wasn't right. Then she said she heard a thump coming from the ceiling and noticed things coming loose from the ceiling. She said, "Then all the nails just popped out of the ceiling over my bed like bing bing bing. I thought there was some poltergeist stuff going on." That's when she sent the men in her home to check out the attic. They found a man. He had packed all the old coats and jackets into the heating unit and was sleeping in the heating unit, she said, adding that the man ran downstairs and out of the house before police could get there. Officers said they found a number of sonic cups filled with feces and urine in the attic. Now, the only entrance to the attic is inside the home in the hall that connects her sons and daughter's bedrooms. Yeah, if I found out that someone was living in my attic, I would freak out. I think I'd prefer it to be a ghost. Number 8. Body in freezer. In 2015, a crew from the 36th District Court went inside Michelle Blair's apartment and began taking out the furniture when they found bodies in her deep freezer. Located in the living room, the freezer contained the bodies of her daughter and one of her sons. On being questioned of the crime, she said that they were turning into demons, so she decided to end their lives and that she would do it again. During the trial, she had many outbursts yelling "F you," and everybody wanted to know, yes, I ended her life, when speaking about her daughter. While she was in court, Michelle said, "I don't care what anybody thinks, she had to go, period." Michelle was convicted of first-degree homicide and sentenced to life imprisonment in June 2015. Currently, she is serving her sentence at the Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Pittsfield Township, Michigan. Now, as per reports, Michelle has accumulated around 28 misconducts by March 2017. Because of her conduct, she was then sentenced to an additional 38 months to 5 years. Number 7. Restaurant front. In 2019, 5 people were under arrest in connection with a ring run out of the back of the original Nancy's Seafood and Oriental Market in Savannah, Georgia. According to law enforcement, the more was 4 pounds of a certain green plant you can smoke, 100 THC vape pens, a crystal substance, and cash. All of it was served up from the inside, shocking other business owners. Not something we'd expect, said Edwin Smith, owner of Crossroads Pawn and Sales. His store is right across the street from Nancy's. He said he didn't know drug sales, but he did know that the food was very popular. Now, the investigation into what was going on behind the counter started in Bullitt County, where law enforcement thought drugs were coming from Chatham County. The trail led right to the restaurant. In some cases, people were going to the very back of the restaurant, so the general public was not made aware, said Gene Harley, assistant director of Chatham-Savannah Counter-Narcotics Team. He says the investigation started and ended in a few days. The owner and family members were arrested, taking down a major part in a cross-country ring. There were lots of people who were utilizing that solely to obtain their narcotics, so it was a distribution hub, Harley said. Number 6. School Fight Club. A teacher in Florida has been arrested for allegedly organizing student fights in her classroom. Yep, a place where you're supposed to learn turned into a fighting ring. Angel Footman watched on from behind her desk as students of Griffin Middle School attacked each other senselessly and even asked them to not record the fight or attract attention by screaming. She has been slapped with 4 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, Angel has denied organizing fights but acknowledged failing to report them. But footage released of these fights showed her laying down the rules of engagement, telling participants not to pull hair and to limit their clashes to 30 seconds each, the outlet reported. Number 5. Campsite. 7.5 months after the Cowden family was reported missing in 1974, police found their bodies. The Cowdens had gone camping in the Siskiyou Mountains in Applegate, Oregon over Labor Day weekend in 1974, but failed to show up for dinner at Richard Cowan's mother's house on September 1st. The media accounts from the time described their campsite as undisturbed, as if the family left abruptly. Investigators later postulated that they had been abducted. Then, their bodies were discovered in April 1975, about 100 feet from the campsite. Richard's body was found tied to a tree, while the bodies of his wife, son, and daughter were found in a cave with rocks sealing the entrance. Dwayne Lee Little, a criminal serving 2 life sentences, allegedly confessed to a fellow inmate that he ended the lives of the Cowdens family while on parole, but there was no conviction and the case remains open. Number 4. Under the bed. Sometimes when you're young, you want your parents to check under your bed for something scary. While something evil under your bed is just an urban legend, this gruesome story actually happened to a couple from as far back as 1982. Now, there were 3 criminals in New Jersey who thought they had a good scam going. They'd steal cars and sell them, but 2 of the 3 got suspicious regarding the third, Gary Smith. Now, all 3 rented a motel room in New Bergen, New Jersey and ordered some food. The 2 men laced the unwitting Gary's burger with cyanide, and after a few bites, Gary began to succumb to the poison and died. The pair then stuffed the dead man's corpse under the bed and left. It was found days later by the 4th couple who rented the room. His body was bloated and discolored after a few nights in between the mattress and the frame in a heated room. Number 3. Severed feet. British Columbia, Canada is home to one of the most gruesome and baffling discoveries within the past few decades. Since 2007, at least 16 severed human feet and running shoes have been found on its shores, from Jedediah Island to Barnacle Beach. Although some of the feet have been identified, it is still unknown why the feet were detached and how they got in the sea. The latest solved case involving a human foot was completed in 2019, for a foot discovered in 2018. In September of that year, a left foot was found inside a blue sock and light gray Nike running shoe. The shoe and foot matched information police had in a missing person report from 2018. The family of that missing person was contacted and provided samples for DNA testing, which matched the DNA samples from the foot. Now, since then, there have been other feet found, as one was found in 2021 and one was found in July of this year. Now, if I came across a severed foot on a beach, I would absolutely freak out. Number 2. Mouse in food. Health and safety is really important in the food industry, but it seems like a Subway in Lincoln City, Oregon didn't really care, as customers may have unknowingly been eating spinach tainted by a dead rodent. Yep, you heard that right. Matt Jones, who discovered the dead animal in his friend Jay's sandwich, took a photo of it. His first reaction was to laugh because he was in utter disbelief about what was in front of him, but his friend on the other hand was obviously revolted at the sight. According to the staff of the establishment, Jay wanted some spinach on his sandwich. The employee who prepared the food scooped the last bit of spinach out of the batch and slapped it onto the sandwich. Now that scoop contained the rodent. This means that everyone who ate spinach from that batch came into contact with food contaminated by a dead animal. The state health department said that the episode didn't put anyone in danger of becoming sick, but it sure did make an impact on the business's name. Health inspectors had consulted with physicians about the circumstances and concluded that the risk of becoming sick would be very low. I would never eat there again if that happened to me. And coming at number 1 is the dolls. Anatoly Moskvin is a Russian former journalist, college professor, and self-dubbed necropoliist with expert knowledge of cemeteries. Now this man was a little strange, as he loved collecting dolls. He had many, and the figures had resembled antique dolls. Some wore knee-high boots, others had makeup on their faces Anatoly had covered in fabric. He also had hidden their hands in fabric, except these were not dolls. They were mummified corpses of human girls. Yep, real dead bodies. He was obsessed with digging up the dead and making dolls out of their corpses. After making his human dolls, he kept them in his home as his companions and lovers. I kissed her once, then again, Anatoly wrote about one of his dolls. Police finally caught up to him in 2011 after years of increasing suspicion at the growing number of desecrated graves in his home city. When the police arrived at his home, they found 26 life-size dolls, or rather mummified corpses, scattered throughout. When police moved one of the bodies, it played music as if on cue. Inside the chests of many of the dolls, Anatoly had embedded music boxes. Now there were also photographs and plaques taken off the gravestone, doll making manuals, and maps of local cemeteries strewn about the apartment. Now this is just overall extremely disturbing. I just can't.
And we're starting off the list with the Challenger Deep. Imagine taking a journey to the deepest point on Earth. It would be exciting for sure, but undeniably terrifying at the same time. The Challenger Deep is the deepest known point of the seabed of Earth. This extreme abyss lies at the southern end of the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean. James Cameron didn't just stick to directing blockbusters. He's a deep sea enthusiast as well. In 2012, he climbed into a specially designed submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger and descended about 36,000 feet, reaching the Challenger Deep, which is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. There's a handful of others who've dared to explore this mysterious abyss. Victor Vescovo, a Texan adventurer and businessman, went deeper in 2019. His submersible, the Limiting Factor, touched the ocean floor at a whopping 36,070 feet, breaking records. So right, it's deep, but what's down there? All sorts of weird and wonderful creatures, and some of them have never been seen anywhere else on Earth. Deep sea divers have also discovered microorganisms that thrive in the extreme conditions of the deep where sunlight can't penetrate. They survive in total darkness and under intense pressure. Organisms like this are pretty cool to discover too, because it makes us really question what the true limits of life are and the potential for extraterrestrial life in the universe that may thrive in environments we never thought living matter could. Number 9, humanoid creatures. So the year is 1982, and Russian military divers are conducting routine training exercises in the deep, dark waters of Lake Baikal, the world's deepest freshwater lake. These divers reported encountering something they couldn't wrap their heads around: humanoid creatures. Survivors stated the beings were about 9 feet tall, with humanoid features and silvery scales or suits covering their bodies. Some even say they had large, unblinking eyes that emitted an eerie glow. Now, the official stance is predictably hush hush. The Soviet government supposedly classified any information related to this incident, which of course just turned cryptid and UFO enthusiast cranks even more. What makes a possible extraterrestrial or mythical creature sighting more plausible than a government cover-up? And at number 8, we have a story posted to Reddit by user Digestive's Rule. This was in response to a thread asking divers what the creepiest thing they'd experienced while diving was. Digestive's Rule wrote, "I'm a commercial diver and was once on a job cleaning a portable water reservoir. I'd been in other reservoirs before, but this one was by far the biggest, at 40 by 80 meters. To get in, you had to open a hatch in the ground. The whole reservoir was underground, and climb down a ladder. The hatch was in a corner, so when you were in the far corner of the reservoir, it was completely pitch black, and you just had to hope your light didn't go out. I was about halfway through a 3-hour dive when the batteries in my torch started going flat. I watched the beam get narrower and dimmer until it cut out completely. It's not a huge problem if you lose light, as you can just follow your umbilical back to the hatch. Just as I started walking back, some obnoxiously loud banging started somewhere in the reservoir. I was the only diver in there, so it both confused and scared the out of me. Needless to say, I ran back to the hatch as fast as I could. I ended up getting my torch changed out and doing another hour in the water, but I didn't hear the noise again. I still have no idea what it was, but the combination of my torch going out and loud banging coming from somewhere gave me a hell of a fright. Now let us turn our attention to the elusive giant squid. So for the longest time, these colossal creatures were thought of in the same way the Loch Ness Monster is, simply rumored to exist, but rarely seen and often dismissed as seafaring folklore. The big breakthrough in the giant squid saga came in 2004 when researchers and a Japanese film crew managed to capture the first images of a living giant squid in its natural habitat. I cannot imagine the excitement. They basically stumbled on a real-life sea monster. The series of images were a game changer, proving that these creatures weren't just the stuff of sailors' tall tales. Then in 2012, another significant moment occurred when scientists managed to capture giant squid footage for the first time in its natural habitat. This time, submersibles were used to spot the creature. So what makes giant squids so fascinating, other than how elusive they are? Well, they're colossal. Some individuals can reach lengths of up to 43 feet with eyes the size of basketballs. Speaking of giant stuff, let's talk a bit about giant isopods. The giant isopod is a crustacean that inhabits the Mariana Trench and other deep sea environments. They kind of look like an oversized pill bug. These things can reach lengths of over 16 inches. Thank God these things were designated for deep sea environments. I've always thought potato bugs are actually kind of cute, but they would not be cute if they were 16 inches long. Don't have the time for that kind of thing scuttling around my apartment. Giant isopods are scavengers feeding on the remains of dead animals that sink to the trench floor. Their slow metabolism allows them to survive on limited food resources in the deep sea environment. Next on the list, we have another massive sized fossil, the Archaeoceti fossil. Just over 90 miles southwest of Cairo lies Whale City. The region earned its name due to the remarkable abundance of high-quality marine fossils found here. One of the biggest discoveries in this fossil-rich valley was the Archaeoceti fossil. These were ancient whales belonging to a long extinct suborder. One of the largest Archaeoceti skeletons found in the valley stretched an impressive 69 feet in length. What sets this particular discovery apart from others, or what sets this type of whale apart from the ones we have now, is that they had hind legs, feet, and toes. And this meant these guys actually traversed on land, hinting at a time when these creatures might have ventured onto land in pursuit of prey or during specific phases of their life cycle. At our number 3 spot, we have the Eye of Sahara. The Eye of Sahara, also known as the Richat structure, is a massive circular formation that looks almost like a giant eye in the middle of the desert. It spans approximately 30 miles in diameter and can be easily seen from space. For a long time, scientists believe it to be an impact crater formed by a meteorite hitting the Earth, but turns out this isn't the case. Geologists now think that it's a highly eroded geological dome created by the uplift of deep-seated rocks and then erosion over millions of years. Even this isn't universally accepted by all scientists, though. There's still some mystery behind this formation. And of course, when there's mystery, there are more fantastical theories. I've heard stuff along the lines of the Eye of Sahara being part of the remains of the lost city of Atlantis. The circular structure matches Plato's description of Atlantis being surrounded by a series of concentric circles. Some have also speculated that maybe ancient alien activity could be the cause, believing that the formation's perfect circular shape is just too precise to be a natural occurrence and must have been created by extraterrestrials. What's very clear, though, is that the Eye of Sahara is a pretty spectacular sight. In 2012, a team of workers from a Polish oil company made a surprising discovery in the vast expanse of the Sahara Desert. During their expedition, they stumbled upon the wreckage of a British Royal Air Force fighter plane, a Kitty Hawk P-40, that had crashed there nearly 70 years earlier during World War II. The pilot of the plane would have been Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping, who had gone missing while defending Egypt from the German invasion of North Africa. But Copping himself was nowhere to be found. It was clear that he'd survived the initial crash, though. Not only were there no bones, but a parachute was discovered, which had been repurposed to form a makeshift shelter. It's believed that he might have survived the crash and initially sought refuge near the wreckage, but running out of food and water, he eventually would have ventured out into the desert, hoping to find help or civilization, but his true fate remains a mystery. There were no other clues as to his whereabouts. And finally, we have another long-lost city, Timgad. Timgad, located at the edge of the Sahara Desert, is an ancient Roman city in present-day Algeria. The city remained hidden beneath the sand for nearly 1,000 years. Founded by Emperor Trajan around 100 AD, Timgad was strategically positioned as a military colony, a vital outpost in the Roman Empire's network. The city's layout was meticulously planned. It had a grid system with well-defined streets, public buildings, and residential areas. Timgad thrived for several centuries. It had impressive structures, a grand arch, a theater, basilicas, temples. But Timgad started to decline at the fall of the Roman Empire. The city succumbed to economic challenges. It was invaded. Eventually, the city was abandoned, gradually fading into obscurity, buried beneath layers of sand. It wasn't until the 19th century that the ruins were rediscovered by European archaeologists, and what was left of the city was remarkably well preserved.
Coming in at number 10 is Rocking Cradle. This Reddit user said, "I was exploring a large abandoned hospital complex and came across a house on the property. I assumed it once belonged to the head of the hospital and his family, as the complex was incredibly isolated and a self-sustaining place. We climbed through a downstairs window, and the house is in fairly decent shape and mostly empty, all apart from an old cradle. It looked Victorian, like it had been lifted off an old-fashioned pram or stroller. Very gothic looking, if I'm honest, and definitely not the kind of thing you would see anymore. We walked past and made some standard "that's creepy" comments and quickly checked out the rest of the house. We have to go back through the cradle room to get out the window, and as we walk in, I stop in my tracks. My friend asks what's wrong and then sees for himself. The cradle has moved several feet and is rocking. There's no breeze, and even if there was, that thing is heavy enough to have left slight scratches in the wooden floor. We heard and saw no one else in the area, and I still cannot explain it. Yeah, that's a no from me. Ugh. Number 9. Organs. This user said, we went to an abandoned woman's prison that's pretty much fallen apart by now. Me and some friends were walking by moonlight and occasionally our phones. We're walking the path and right smack in the middle are several piles of organs from small animals. Like 6 to 7 piles, hearts, lungs, kidneys, and possibly the liver. They all looked pretty fresh, they weren't decayed, and they were still pretty moist. Now there wasn't any blood around or obvious tracks / footprints. We noped out of there with quickness that night. Then when people in the comments of this post responded saying maybe it was an owl or hunters, they replied by saying, I don't think so. This was close to a production plant residential area, like so close to a stray bullet could strike a house. But even the best hunter spills blood or hair around. Plus there weren't any tracks / prints. Yeah, that sounds extremely unnerving and downright scary. Number 8, untouched property. This user said, when I was younger, I broke into a very small abandoned house near my uncle's cottage. The owner of that house was the man who had passed some 20 to 25 years ago. The whole place was completely untouched, so I'm pretty sure the last people to be in there before me were the EMTs who locked up after they took away the body. The bed where the guy passed was unmade and messy. The pillow and the blanket were half eaten by moss. Same with the clothes hanging in the forest. Floor was covered in rat poop. There were dirty dishes in the sink, which were stained yellow. On the bedroom table, there was an open book and some others stacked next to it. Other than that, it seems like the guy was completely broke since there was nothing else in the house. No photos or documents, no TV or radio, no extra furniture. The doors and windows were locked, so no one else had been there. The man had no relatives, according to my uncle, and was only 45 to 50 years old. Now that's just absolutely crazy that the property just sat there lost in time. Number 7, possessed music box. This online user said, we were out exploring around 11:30 at night in the middle of a forest. We stumbled upon an old abandoned house, and it didn't seem too creepy at first until we stepped foot inside. Everything was pitch black and boarded off. Turning on our phone flashlights revealed scattered all across the floors in every room, along with tons of dolls. Now the creepy part was when we ventured into the basement. The moment I turned the corner, went down the stairs, and looked in the basement, I heard a music box start playing from the other end of the room. Needless to say, the 3 of us bucked it out of there as fast as we could. Yeah, music boxes are inherently creepy, but nope. Number 6, the ritual. This explorer said there was an old brick building in the middle of my hometown. It was gutted by fire, but the walls and ceiling remained. This place was huge and the property was all overgrown and wooded. Now the place had been abandoned for decades, and whenever we went exploring there, it was mostly inside the building. We decided to explore the woods once, and they were very dense and difficult to push through. We found a clearing inside, and it was almost perfectly circular. There were logs arranged around the circle, a large star made of sticks in the middle. There were figures of people made of sticks and twigs hanging from nearby branches. I have no idea what the place was, but it was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. Now this sounds exactly like a scene from the movie Blair Witch. I hope they didn't touch anything and just left, because I don't think they'd want to be terrorized by whatever put that there. Number 5, the Raven. This user said we went to a large abandoned federal prison. It was a sanctioned tour, but it was dark and creepy, and there were physical safety issues. Went through the psych ward and the infirmary as the last 2 stops of the tour, and then we were all allowed to just wander freely. My group of 4 went back to the psych ward. This time, there was a huge raven dead in the middle of the floor on the first room of the psych ward. Its head was at a crazy angle, and it was lying in a puddle of blood that was still wet. Now all windows were closed and intact, and we left and re-entered through the only door that led to the rest of the building. Nobody saw or heard anything like a bird, and it was the middle of the night, so it wouldn't have just been flying around. Made me think they're probably creepy squatters who weren't happy about the overnight tours, which had just started the week before, so it really gave me the creeps. Number 4. Carcasses. My college folklore professor told us the story of how she and her friend were working for a professor while they were in grad school in the 70s, doing research on ghost stories in a southern Indiana small town. They checked out an old abandoned farmhouse and barn, but didn't find anything interesting in the barn and decided to check out the farmhouse. This place is missing all the windows, the doors are hanging off the hinges, and there's lots of leaf coverage and dirt in the entryway. But further into the house, it's clean. Too clean. My father heard her friend shriek, followed by the cry, "There's a leg." So she runs back to see and finds what looks like an animal leg sticking out over the top of the stairs. They go up to see and find a fresh pig carcass, head missing and hind legs bound by barbed wire, but otherwise intact. It had been there maybe a few days. But then they see more pig carcasses lined up heading down the hall, each one laying in the exact same position and bound by wire, but in varying stages of decomposition. The room at the end of the hall was missing the door, and they could see the pigs go straight into the room. In the room there was a circle of all the pigs' heads. There were 6 total. They decided it was time to get the hell out, but when they were walking back to their car, a beater truck pulled up with 2 men in it. They just stared at my professor and her friend, who tried to explain why they were there and apologize. She said after several minutes the driver said, "Ain't no problem," and gave her a really creepy smile, then backed out of the driveway. Now they relayed what they saw to their head professor when they got back into town, who then informed the local authorities. Cops took an hour to get out there, but said they didn't find anything but maybe some stains, but that the women had probably stumbled upon the local Satanist they'd been having problems with. Honestly, those 2 women are lucky that nothing happened to them. Number 3. The voice. This explorer said, "I live in Scotland and read about the legend of Swany Bean. History says his family lived in a cave and ended the lives of those unfortunate enough who passed by unaccompanied. Once dead, they would rob them and eat their bodies. This went on for over 20 years, so they acquired quite a reputation. Living not so far from the caves, I decided to visit. I found where the cave was, and it is the most beautiful place but completely silent, except for the waves rolling onto the beach. I walked into the cave and looked around, everything was cool. 10 minutes or so after being there, I decided to leave and walked out. I left the cave, but I had walked about 6 feet when I heard a woman's voice. It wasn't a whisper or indistinct, but a plain woman's voice from behind me. All it said was, 'Help me.' I turned expecting someone to be there, but saw nothing. I walked back the way I had come from the calling out and asking who it was, but got no answer. I spent about 5 minutes looking and was getting ready to leave when I heard 'Help me' again coming from the cave. I spent about 20 minutes more searching, but I found nothing. What I heard was real, and I cannot explain it. Number 2, the dripping noise. This user said, "I went to an abandoned old hall ballroom building with my friends. We went there fairly often over the years, always checking out some other areas of the building. One thing I remember about that building was that eventually we would always start to hear something like a leaky faucet dripping water into a basin. But the thing was, the sound was never there when we entered the place. It always started after we had been there for a while, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 40, sometimes 90, but eventually the leaky faucet sound would be heard throughout the building. It usually started off slowly and then increased in speed. Now we were totally immersed in the location and so freaked out by this dripping that we would leave as soon as it became louder and more obnoxious. At one point we found a lonesome wash basin in one of the hallways and it was dripping indeed. We thought we had found the perpetrator. We pulled a balloon over the faucet so the dripping would leave us alone for the day. The thing is, about 5 minutes after we did that and had continued on to another part of the place, the dripping started again. Freaked out, as usual, we left. And coming in at number 1 is Chainsaw Clown. This user said, "One night we headed through tunnels and we saw some creepy graffiti, including an ornate piece that said hell with an arrow pointing down a corridor. Our group of about 10 said let's go to hell and we went down. The graffiti got more and more horror show-like as we traveled, and sometime later we turned a corner. I'm towards the back of the group, so some of this is secondhand, but I heard my buddy Ken yell, 'Holy sh!' and the crowd starts surging back towards me, and I hear a chainsaw starting and revving. Ken says when he turned the corner, there were a bunch of these Satanist weirdos gathered in a dead end, all in costume like they just spilled out of a Halloween show. One of them started a chainsaw and they all rushed at the group. Cue to the next few hours, alternatively wandering lost and hiding in the tunnels, while periodically hearing the sound of a chainsaw in adjacent tunnels. Now I suppose I'll never know if these clowns were actually psycho or if they just thought it was cool to scare people that ventured into their tunnels, but at any rate, once we all found our way out, it was a quiet caravan home.